kind of watch who's on this call, depending on what we can talk about. So welcome, Chaos Community Call, April 28th. Put the minutes in the chat so you can head on over there and add yourself and tell us how you're feeling today. I would like to let everybody know that morel mushroom hunting season is upon us, and I have been morel mushroom hunting for probably about 30 years. So this is a very good time of the year.
Is it
Oh,
harder
when I
when you
lived
have?
in Ohio, we used to do that all the time. We used to find
Yeah.
them back in our woods, and they're delicious.
Yes, it's a blast. It's a really, really good time. I'm a little disappointed because I normally go with my dad. I mean, he's here, but like I can't do the car ride with him at the moment. So, and normally a lot of the time, mushroom hunting is just being with people. You know what I mean? Like kind of hanging out in the woods, like out in the wilderness. So, all right. So I was just going to give an update. I think I was going to kind of watch my update based on who's on this call on the CHAOSS Community Manager position. Again, we have a team of folks who are kind of watching the resumes come in. We've had a lot, highly variable in terms of fit. I've been sending out to the group of folks involved kind of curated set of resumes, I guess is what it would be. If you're on the team and you're looking at these and you want to take a look and change anything, and indeed something that may have been marked as a don't talk to this, not interested, and you want to change it, that's totally fine. I've just been trying to kind of curate the list as it goes forward. I'm specifically looking for the things that we were talking about on the team. So I'm kind of being a little vague here in what I say, just because this is being a recorded community call.
Yes.
For those of you that are on that, if you could take a look at some of those today, and if you have comments about the process that I had sent out to, please feel free to come back with different processes as to how we move forward. So very open to thoughts there. So let's see how people are doing. Let's see. The podcast, Georg, do you want to give us an update on what's going on there?
Sure. The podcast is going well. We have recorded 3 episodes. The last one was about Augur. And
You dug into it.
We really did. It was amazing.
Sorry.
I learned a lot. And the next episode will be about Grimoire Lab. Ray, I sent you an email earlier asking if you could join as a user to share your perspective.
Yeah, happy to. I just responded on the doodle poll, so hopefully a few of those time slots work. Happy to do it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And yeah. Okay. The processes we are still defining, but we are coming to a close with the Code Fund Podcast Network. We have it now well enough defined that we actually have edited audio for the first and second episodes. And after this call, I'm going to meet with Matt Brobert to upload the first episode to Fireside, which is the hosting platform we will be using. And then I will send you all an email update through the list. We will not publish it on like iTunes and other platforms until we have 3 uploaded, because they apparently have a filtering system and they want to see that a podcast is dedicated and can produce at least 3 shows before they list any new podcast. So depending on how fast we are going to publish the podcast, the episodes, we can get it into the big platforms. The plan right now was to record every other week and publish once per month. And we have been talking about this within the panelists to go faster. And for that, we need more volunteers who can commit to being on a podcast episode once per month. So that is, if we have enough people to have like 2-3 every week to record an episode, so we would need 8 to 12 regular panelists. Then we
Already
can.
on that list, right?
You're on the list, Sean.
Yeah,
Thank
right.
you.
Sorry. Making
Then
sure.
we can, make this make this a much more engaging medium, because then we can, and there's so much we can talk about, so many people we can talk to, that I think we just need to, now that we have the process, one of my goals for this week is to document it in the community handbook. And once that's there, I will make a call on the mailing list to ask for more volunteers. So that's the update from the podcast. Any questions?
No. Well, I actually have one comment. So I think the decision was also made that as funds are generated from the podcast, that a percentage of them would be earmarked to help support an outreachy student in the future. And then also be made available for people who are participating in the podcasts on a regular basis, whatever that regular basis might, whatever that threshold might be, to be able to buy equipment like a microphone or headphones that you think might help in the recording. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Cool. All right. I have just a few other things here. One, from a community meeting perspective, I guess I had two. One was to try to make sure to end our meetings at 50 minutes. I was going to make a suggestion that for the community calls and the working group calls, it was just a suggestion that we try to consciously, if our meetings are going towards the hour, we try to end them at 50, just so, because we're all on Zoom so much, and we can give people an opportunity to step aside, catch the breath, whatever it might be.
I'm all for that. Whenever I schedule a meeting, I do it for 50 minutes. I never schedule the whole hour if it's up to me, because people, I'm men of a certain age, I gotta pee, and I need a minute between those meetings for that to happen.
I'm not gonna say that. I was just gonna say to give people an opportunity to do whatever they
TMI.
You can rely on me to say this almost inappropriate thing, but walk right up to that line and
So
not cross.
anyway, I'm guilty of this myself, and so going not the part, going right
Matt
up.
never pees. He's a robot.
Yes, that's right. Okay, we can leave me out.
All right, I'll let it go now.
So the other thing, moving on, the other thing is we're going to be starting an Asia Pacific CHAOSS community call. I think that's the name gonna go forward, so I'm pretty happy about this. If anybody has comments on the name, I think Asia Pacific covers folks.
I checked it with some of my colleagues, and it seems like a name that's not offensive.
I want to make sure anyone, appropriate name.
So if anyone knows of a better term, please let us know. We are trying to make sure we're using the right term.
Yep. I think that's good. So yep.
Okay.
So thank you for jotting that down. It's going to be bi-weekly, and we're going to meet Wednesdays at 8
a.m. Is it 8 a.m.?
Yeah. So we moved it. So it's 8 a.m. U.S. Central.
That makes it easier to attend for some people.
Yeah. So I think that's just early in the afternoon in UTC, but more appropriately, it's evening in the areas we want to join. So
Beijing.
Yep.
Is it this week or next week?
May 6th.
And
It's gonna be the first
are
one.
you
Day after
meeting
Cinco
on
de
the
Mayo. Great
CHAOSS
choice.
Zoom?
It's the same Zoom. It's the same Zoom channel.
Okay. And I will add it to the CHAOSS Weekly
Okay.
newsletter.
Okay. And I had reached out to Harish as well. you had wanted a meeting as well. And so this meeting won't necessarily, it'll probably look and feel a lot like this meeting, to be honest with you, largely about updates as to what's going on, just how things are moving forward is basically what the meeting is. So it's a community call.
Do we?
Yeah.
So if we have the Asia Pacific community call, do we want to call this one the US Europe community call?
I hadn't thought about that. I don't know. Do people have thoughts? I hadn't really thought about it, to be honest with you. Nobody has any opinion on this.
Okay.
On
No.
what is the opinion being asked for?
The APAC community call is also relatively European friendly, right? Am I doing the time zones right? It's just not the only one. It's the only people it's not friendly for is West Coast US.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And it sounds like it. What time is it in Beijing?
Like 9 o'clock
That night?
at night,
Yeah.
something like that.
So we
Yeah.
had done kind of a preliminary one, kind of to your suggestion, Don, just to see, and it was at 6 a.m. We did it at 6 a.m. U.S. Central, and then we were kind of just going back and forth if that was the appropriate time. But everybody so far has responded that the 8 a.m. U.S. Central, which would be 9 o'clock in Beijing, and Singapore, I think, is right there as well, was all right. So. I mean, we can always move it a little earlier if we need to. That's not a problem. I make Sean join me on it, and Sean's awake by 6.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't. Does anybody have another opinion about renaming this call to? We could call it the not West or the West Coast friendly call.
I think we can probably just leave it. I think that's fine.
Okay. Very cool. All right. So the metrics repository. Remember how last week I was like, that thing is a disaster. So I'm going to share my screen real quickly. Hold on. All right. So here's kind of what I'm proposing, and just tell me otherwise as well. I didn't quite finish this, but the README for this would be as simple as this. So immediately driving people to the current release, saying if you want to work on the metrics, here are the working groups. Here's a template. This is the thing that we always seem to need. This is a link to the web page, the participate web page. That's the end of it. So I'm trying to get people to, here's the release. If you want to look at the current metrics that are released, go there. If you want to do the work, go here. These are yet to be, this work is yet to be released. And then I would propose, I mean, we have this whole long list of activity metrics that we get rid of this folder as well. What do people think?
Yes.
Okay.
We can get rid of it. If we ever need it again, we have it in the commit history.
Yeah. Are people okay with this? This would be the metrics repo. It'd be as simple as this. People have thoughts?
One of the thoughts I have is whether we even need it at that point, because all this information is on the website. And I come back to people might just show up on GitHub and they need a place to enter into our metrics. And so I do think we need it for the people who are just looking on CHAOSS on GitHub.
Okay.
You could maybe merge this with the governance just to put it all together.
I'm okay with it being here, just with just because this is the metrics work. and I don't mind pointing people to the current release and the work groups. I guess one of my concerns with the governance repo is that I don't want it to get overloaded with a bunch of things, like kind of a bunch of different things. So everybody else all right with this, generally speaking?
Yeah, let's get rid of that activity metrics folder and merge it, create a pull request.
Yeah, and get rid of this link, I suppose, to the.
Yes, I just saw that and was like, we still have the wiki? No.
All right, yeah, okay, got it. Will do. All right, let's see. I'll just put finish at. The last two things that I had, and then we can see if anybody else has anything. So CHAOSS.Con North America, I had sent this out to the events team, and I'm happy to talk about it here. So we were approached by the Linux Foundation because of the changes in events that are occurring right now. The Linux Foundation is looking for a way to, I'm thinking, supplement work for folks that are on the events team. And from what I understand, folks on the events team have worked with people at the Linux Foundation over the last week to kind of do a boot camp on how they might be able to help projects do the work that they're doing, right? Whatever that work might be. So if it's repository management work, if it's running meetings work, if it's whatever it might be. For a short temporary basis for 1 to 3 months. So this is not a long-term thing. This does not at all affect any of the community manager search that we're doing. This is separate from that. And so my initial thought was, so Sean and I do have the funds to do this. So it would be covered through the stuff that we're doing with Sloan. So the thought was to help with CHAOSS.Con as a virtual event, just help in that regard. So it would take some of the burden off of the events team people with CHAOSS.Con and setting this up as a virtual event. It wouldn't be just turning over the keys. So like as we have ideas about how to run the event or what might suit us best, certainly, but just kind of helping with the logistics of that. And my thought was maybe for a couple months we could use this help. It's 10 hours a week, so it's not a ton of time. So I mean, it would amount to 80 hours of work. Do people have thoughts on this? Again, cost the CHAOSS project nothing, and help with CHAOSS.Con as a virtual event, which I'm not very comfortable with. So.
So, sorry, you said you're not very comfortable with?
Well, turning it into a virtual event. I just know I'm super comfortable with doing it. I'm not comfortable with like how to do that properly.
Yeah, agreed. I think if we do this, that our first step should be rethinking CHAOSS.Con, because what I'm trying not to do is just take all of these in-person events and replicate them.
Yeah.
And 8 hours straight of Zoom calls. We've talked about this before. That just does not sound appealing to me.
No.
So I think if we do talk about making it a virtual event, that we should start with that question and talk about what it would really mean. Especially, I mean, here's what I'm struggling a bit with, and I'm struggling with this for the Contributor Summit for KubeCon as well, because I'm one of the leads for that event. Do we really want to tack additional events onto events where people are already spending, several days on Zoom to attend OSS North America, to attend KubeCon? So all these events, it made sense to tack them on when it was, a bunch of people traveling to a place. I'm not sure that it makes sense to tack CHAOSS.Con onto OSS NA per se.
That's the great point.
Yeah, I mean, I missed like the last couple of weeks meeting, so you guys may have already discussed it. And Don, I agree with you. Like having more Zoom sessions. I mean, I think in life in general, we had enough of that. Like whether it's for open source or anything else, right? I mean, maybe one of the things I'm thinking is we don't need like a 4 hours of content or like, you know, several hours of content. Maybe even if it's like 60 to 90 minutes, we have like a short sessions on various updates. Like it could be, I'm making this up, it could be updates on Grimoire Lab, it could be updates on Augur or project updates in general. And if we have those like a pre-recorded things that people can watch, and then maybe we have like an hour of networking, like sort of tack on to OSS North America, and it just, you know, if people had questions about any of the pre-recorded contents, that there'll be more of a, you know, I don't know how we can like replicate this. Maybe it's more of a social thing, like we're all sort of together and just hanging out, and we can talk about the video that's been posted, and we can answer questions, and especially if there are new people that are not familiar with CHAOSS. But I don't know how many like a new people will kind of sort of come along and check out our sessions or ask us questions. So that's the only thing I can think of, just make it short and sweet and make it more casual networking thing versus here is 4 hours of slides that you need to go through. Like, but, and because I mean, I haven't like read in detail, like, I don't know if a number of you have also have sessions accepted for OSS North America, because I think they're providing an option of you recording your presentation before the event, right? I mean, that kind of piqued my interest. Like that's something that I want to think about. But so I mean, that's where the idea is from. But I don't know what rest of you all think. But
perhaps I can bring some experience from the Inner Source Commons. It's a bit different community, but it may help. So we went from 2.5 days, 3 days into a couple of days. And then instead of having like these 3 full days, 8 hours per day, we went for 3 hours each day. We agreed about having a smaller number of talks on the one hand, and then they should take not that long as the usual ones. So what we had was like an opening, like it was live stream. Then we went through 3 talks, pre-recorded ones, and 1 keynote, 2 regular talks, 20 minutes, 15 minutes each. So we filled like 50 minutes approx. And then we asked the speakers to pre-record the talk. So then we can have Q&A directly in the chat while people are listening to the talk. So then after this, we had kind of funny stuff, cup contest or kind of cake in a mug stuff. So people needed to prepare something like in 5-10 minutes. And then we were setting up breakout sessions for specific discussions. And then we had the break. So all of this was like 1 hour and 20 minutes. So we have the break, 10 minutes, we prepare the breakout sessions. And then people are moved automatically to the breakout sessions. So then in those breakout sessions, we had some predefined topics. And in some other cases, we had like some open discussion about the topic. So we have 5 channels. We were in total 80 people. We had like between 10 and 20 people in each room. So it's enough to turn on the microphone and the video. So then people can have open discussions. This was like 40 minutes. Then we had another break, another 3 talks, same way, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, regular talk, keynote. And then in the wrap-up session with Q&A, and then in the wrap-up session, we brought people on this virtual stage. So then they can say, I learned this stuff, I learned this other thing, I love this talk or this other stuff. So this was like 3 hours, 3 hours and a half, and then the 2 days. Feedback we got is the chat was a bit we were using Zoom in this case, but the breakout sessions functionality was quite good, or at least that was the feedback, because people didn't need to do anything. Basically, you are moved to the breakout session, and then you are back from the breakout session we had a lot of people involved. So we have the host giving access to the waiting room because we asked for a fee, like 25 euros. We wanted people to be sure that, well, you know, we wanted them to really come to the meeting and say something if they feel. So 25 euros was like something. What else? Yeah, these 80 people, peaks of 80 people, in total around 100 registered. And we needed like a host to have this waiting room and kick out people in case, you know, these security things that Zoom is facing. Then we have a co-host that was in this case me, playing the videos. Then we had channel moderators where they were announcing each of the speakers and next session and so on. So people are informed either through the video or through the chat. And then we had a plan B and a plan C. Like, okay, if this is not working for me, I have a plan B, who is this other guy playing the videos, etc. It worked. So maybe Georg, you came to the meeting, so maybe you can bring some more, your opinion.
I think you covered really well the structure and how it was executed. So there's not much that I have to add. I wrote in the chat that for the discussion that was happening in parallel with the conversations, that in parallel with the presentations, so that was very good. There was a lot of interest and people were like, oh, you just said this, and asked the question, and the speaker being on at the same time was able to respond immediately while the presentation continued. If that so the challenge in Zoom was that it's all linear, and if there was a way to respond directly to each post or question, like in threads, like Slack does it, that would have been better. Okay. But that's just a minor tooling concern.
And 3 hours was more than enough. So in our opinion, was like the time. No,
the 3 hours was the day. That was the day length.
So there were 2 days.
So one day was 3 hours and the second day was 3 hours. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the short 10-minute, 15-minute presentations was, yeah. Okay. There was so much high quality content condensed into really short presentations. It was excellent.
So is there a need for somebody from the LF events team to help us, not necessarily define the format, but to help coordinate this and market it and get the word out? To me, there is. I mean, the less work that we have to do.
There is a lot of work, I can say.
Yeah.
I mean, or administering the tool, right? Whether, I mean, I forget the tool they're going to use for OSS North America. It's not Zoom, right? It's more like an event related tool. So yeah, I mean, I think if we were to do this, I think like registration, marketing, and then logistics of managing the tools, like even letting people in the room, for example, right? Yep. I think that would be really helpful. But I think, like, I mean, I think we need to decide, like, whether we want to, like, do this or not. It sounds like, right? Like, do we do this at all, or do we just completely, like, skip this? But if we were to do it, I think there's a lot of stuff that we can ask the events team to help us with. But,
okay.
Yeah.
One of the questions that popped into my head is when we are no longer co-locating with the summit, we're thinking about doing our own event. We had talked about moving it to August, and that would be beyond 3 months. So would we still have the support of this person when we execute the event? That's just something to think about.
So like kind of work with this person in the initial arrangement, but then they would come back during the event kind of thing. Certainly a question I can ask. I don't think that's out of the world of possibilities. So, okay. Any other thoughts on this? We can get help, I think is what I'm trying to say. We can define the structure ourselves. We have control over the content. This is just help in getting this off the ground. So
Yeah, I think it'd be great to have some help and some support. And, if nothing else, I mean, having somebody we can bounce ideas off of and give us some suggestions and help us get started on the right foot.
okay, right on. Cool.
And just a minor thing. I mean, this isn't a big thing. I mean, I appreciate like you and Sean have the budget to support this, but I mean, in general, like I think it's appropriate to use the funds from the project, right? I mean, just like Georg, I don't know, Matt, if you have different opinions, but so
Yeah,
because I mean, we spend our own budget on events anyways, right?
And
So
I know we're using some of that to support one of our summer students from Outreachy.
we are.
I don't know how much is left after that.
Right. Okay, I mean, it's not a big thing, just
Yeah.
a side comment, but I mean,
So personally, I mean, from kind of the perspective that Sean and I are at, I mean, this is the grant is supporting the work in the CHAOSS project. So this is not out of bounds, and this is spot on with what this is about.
Okay.
So no trouble there. And any way that we can leave those funds in Community Bridge is cool by me. So if this is an opportunity to do that, but I appreciate that. Thanks, Ray. All right, great. So then I'll reach out to Brian Warner and kind of move forward with that in terms of the partner with the Linux Foundation. And so then as an events team, we probably want to get together and maybe for those that are on the events team, think about when we might want to actually do this. Is it August? I mean, do we just push it all the way back to August?
One of the things we should talk about with the Linux Foundation is whether or not we would have their support for a platform if we change the dates.
Okay.
Because they probably have the platform contracted for whatever it is, the 2 or 3 days plus the day that they're doing all the extra events. So that might influence our decision one way or the other.
Okay, cool.
Good question.
And then my last thing was, this has taken some time, but I'll bring up one last thing. So we have, oh my gosh, buttons. We have finally produced it took a while. So a community report. So this is for Jenkins X. So we had been talking about this for a while. And just kind of a low overhead community report that can be shared with people who may have an interest in how the Jenkins X community, or really any community, is kind of functioning at the high level, right? Of course, if you wanted to dig deeper, you have to do that digging deeper with either Augur or Grimoire Lab. So this is kind of that high level look at what a community can be in a PDF that kind of provides this information. So we finally got this done. Great. I shared it with Kara. So we'll kind of see what she has to say, but I just wanted to let you know that we're finally moving forward on this, at least from this kind of distributable PDF kind of thing. So. Can
you scroll down again? Oh, sorry. I was too late.
No, you're fine.
I'm just looking at it, and how useful is this risk committers bits? Because looking at it, it's like googlegroups.com,
that too, yeah.
no reply, Gmail, and then there's
bleep.
Yeah, this data looks not useful for me. The risk part.
Which data are you looking at?
Because it's basically affiliation data, but it's not clean enough to be usable. Affiliation data requires a lot of manual work, says the person who spent months on it on her PhD, just cleaning up one subsystem for the kernel for just 2 years.
Totally fair.
Yeah, so this doesn't look useful to me.
That part.
Just that part. The rest looks good.
Okay, cool. Good. And again, just kind of this high level document that you can like give to perhaps management or execs that just kind of want this kind of quick look at a particular project. So, okay, cool. Thank you.
One thought that I have is it would be nice to see year-over-year change in percent in addition to the absolute numbers.
Okay. So as they would run this report in another 6 months kind of thing, that you would see changes in these? Okay. So one of the things, all right, thank you for the feedback. One of the things that had come up today I brought it up in the Grimoire Lab call is if there's any way, so now that we kind of have this template that was produced, so I think a lot of you know that I like Cauldron because I think it gives people an easy access to get information about their communities without doing a lot of work. So it's not obviously super in-depth or as in-depth as things like Augur or Grimoire Lab in full can go, but it gives you that really great kind of first glimpse at your community.
Is the source code, is that, what was it developed in? I imagine some kind of publication friendly Adobe tool, do you know?
What this PDF was developed in?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I could.
I mean, I think it would be good. It would be helpful for Grimoire Lab and for Augur if those kinds of reports are something that we want to produce kind of in a consistent format. If
that was just
if we had the source, then we could generate. I mean, we could figure out how to generate something that looks exactly like that every time, and add to it, change it, depending on the particular questions that a community has. Although I think the aim, as I understand it, is to keep this document to a single page.
It is. And so just this high level look, something that can be shared really, really easily. Because the workflow to get this done at the moment was Georg set up an instance of Grimoire Lab. He sent me the data. I sent it to the marketing folks at the university here. They put this together. They gave it, and then I sent it to Kara. Like, that's a ridiculous workflow just to get us a really simple PDF. And so just trying to think of ways, and I just went to Cauldron because it would be this, enter your repository, push button to get nice report. I would love like a workflow like that because I think a lot of people, aren't the large clients, they're small communities and they just want to get these kind of simple looks at their communities without going into a lot of overhead. And I think Cauldron provides this, and if they can produce distributable documents that they can share easily, I think that would be great. So I don't know what that workflow can look like. I don't know how to get it done, but it's just something that's on my mind because the current process was silly. So if anybody has comments on that or anything. But.
So in Cauldron, having those visualizations, we can export them. So we can even ask the Cauldron team to pre-install the visualizations that we want or those analytics.
It came up about the ability to report out of Cauldron. I don't think it's part of the current system, but it's something that we might want to drill into. And can we get it to look kind of like this report? Like, I don't know what it looks like. They had mentioned that Kibana was what does the reporting.
Yeah, so the new versions of Kibana, and so they have this specific feature about exporting to PDF, but I think this is part of the XPack and this is not open source.
Okay.
So Cauldron is fully based on the open source version. This is based on OpenDistro. Well, mix of tooling and so. But in any case, so the discussion is if we cannot produce that PDF because that feature is not part of this Cauldron thing, then perhaps the other way would be to have this panel available to everyone and fixed to the last year date, for instance. Then this is a matter of accessing that dashboard. It's not a PDF, but you have a link.
Okay.
And then we can, what Sean recommended is share the template so people can insert the numbers from the panel into their PDF and share that.
Yeah,
Okay,
I don't, yeah, my guess is it's an Adobe tool, but there's probably an open source library that would let us read that formatting information and maybe convert it to something easier for us to work with, or at least generate. I think Matt, one of the things you've suggested is it's really important that these reports look the same.
I would agree. Yeah, and they look professional. Like, I know that this looks pretty simple, but somehow I wouldn't pick that font, and somehow my spacing would be all off, and somehow everything would just look horrible.
Yeah, I've recently received a compliment from somebody about the font I chose for something.
Yeah, it's totally accidental when I do that.
Yeah.
Professionals do it is somehow.
I use Palatino, and people seem to like that.
All right. Well, this is just something that's on my mind. All right. That was what I had. I'm trying to keep these smaller. Anybody have any other things they want to bring up?
Is the completed report available somewhere?
No, I literally just got this yesterday from the
Okay.
here at the university. So
I wouldn't mind if the source code's available. I wouldn't mind like generating Kate's Zephyr report in the same format. Right now, she's asked us for we've done a whole bunch of very specific kinds of things for Zephyr. But I think a standard output like that would also be helpful.
let me see if I'm sure they'll share it. I don't think they'd have a problem with that. So the university here. That's what you're asking for, right?
Yeah. I mean, I doubt that it's like a highly proprietary thing. I'm sure somebody just did it for you.
Yes, they did. Okay, cool. Anything else?
Quick comment
Yeah.
here. We have a new repository in the CHAOSS community. So I'm sharing this in the chat, which is this organizations and domains that we were discussing. They have some centralized place for to have this information between Augur and Grimoire Lab, and this might be useful for others. So we thought about having this repository with this initial list of organizations and domains. So I don't know. So you're aware of this, and if you have any opinion, would be good to know.
Cool, thank you. So the idea behind this repository is that Grimoire Lab and Augur were kind of doing the same. They were managing kind of the similar data around organizational affiliation. One management was occurring in Augur, one management was occurring in Grimoire Lab, and why not just share the effort on this single JSON?
I'm not sure that I understand. Is the idea to populate this with a list of organizations and domains? Or is the idea to have a common format? So the idea is to have like google.com means Google. Redhat.com means Red Hat. Okay.
Yeah, that's the goal. So it's like having a gold standard for organization domains.
So yes, so Google Doc. Yeah, you're exactly right. Google.com,
cool.
But not Gmail.com would mean Google, and we don't have a case for when mergers and acquisitions occur to go backdate email addresses. So like Red Hat people probably are maybe they won't get IBM email addresses. I don't know, but if the email addresses change with M&A, then we won't. We'll probably in Augur we'll detect that as a new affiliation, and if that's not, I don't know if that's the desired behavior or if it isn't the desired behavior, or I guess it gets a little tricky with M&A, and there's been a couple of examples of that in the community over the years. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on if there's like a way that we should handle those cases, or people like Brian Prophet would be a great person to ask. Dawn, I know you're working with VMware now. Is there like a best way to address those affiliations? Because I bet your email is not changing, or is it?
It will eventually. Right now it's still pivotal.io, but it'll eventually be a VMware. I also
Yeah.
have the VMware one. They just haven't migrated my email yet, so I'm still using the Pivotal one. I mean,
Yeah.
from my standpoint, what I'm doing at VMware for our metrics is I'm just taking all of those acquired domains and saying if this email address is Bitnami or Pivotal or Carbon Black or any of the other recent acquisitions, then I'm just calling those VMware employees.
Okay.
But the
Through all
problem is
history.
like yes,
Okay.
because I don't care that much. However, I think it depends on the project, right? Like some
Yeah.
other people would care that they were employed at Red Hat at this point and they're, IBM now or, whatever
So
however you
the
handle it. I think it depends on your use case and how you're using the metrics.
so a way that we could, so right now the JSON is structured where there's an ending domain name and a name of a company, and anybody, including you, could do a pull request that would alter, for example, pivotal.io to have the company name be VMware, through all, like, just map that going forward to all those. The other, so that would be, specific companies with different ways they want to handle it could do pull requests against the data based on how they want to view it. And so then you would have a standard data list that would work with Bitergia or work with Augur and map them the way that you want to map them.
But I think it's not necessarily the way that I want to map them as VMware. Let's say that the Linux kernel, some of their data that they wanted to use this list, they
Right.
might have a different perspective on whether or not they wanted to call me a VMware employee 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
or whether they want me to be, a Pivotal employee and then a VMware employee, and whether or not they want to track those differences.
So we
I'm saying there is no one good
Yeah.
solution, is what I'm trying to say, which is not
Yeah.
what you wanted to hear.
No, but it did occur to me then that it's not outrageous, I don't think, to have two different files, one with historical, companies like not modified, and one that accounts for M&A, and then a user of Augur, a user of Grimoire Lab could choose which to use. Like, it makes it a little bit more complicated, but I don't think it makes it super more complicated.
What I can
We don't
say
have
in
to
the
solve
case
that right now.
So some of the use cases we had in Victoria is that when a company is acquired by a second company, we still specified up to that time the original company, and then after the acquisition, the new company in the list of organizations. So perhaps it might be really interesting to have that information somewhere in the JSON document, like we can say acquired and then the date and then the original, the new company. So then we link to the same JSON document somehow.
Yeah,
But anyway.
like Red Hat's doing it. I believe my Red Hat colleagues all are using redhat.com still, and it seems at this point that that's not going to change.
Thank you.
So can we
table this? Yes.
Yes. Can we pick this up, pick it up in an issue, or pick it up next week in an effort to do what I said we were going to do,
Yes.
and stop at 50. So thanks everybody for your time, and we'll see you soon.
All right. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. You. Bye.
Bye-bye. Ray? Oh, he left.